Casey, I think we're ready to
Yeah.
plug away if you want to call the meeting to order.
Call the meeting to order and make a motion to open the meeting.
Yep.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to open the meeting. Anyone like to second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Yeah.
Favor.
I'm still new.
There we
I
go.
think you just take a roll call.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Casey, I'll do the roll call for you. Casey Atkins, Chair of the Recreation Commission.
Present here.
Jen Lutz, Recreation Commission member. Paul Bohm, Recreation Commission member.
Here, aye.
Paul Grasso, Recreation Commission member.
Yes.
Also joining us tonight is Matt Johnson, the Select Board Liaison.
I'm present.
And also joining is from the Recreation Department, Ryan Kane, the Recreation Director, Andy Dutton, the BD Center General Manager, and Anna McEwen, the Assistant Director of Recreation, and one member from the public, Carlin Reed, is starting off with us right now.
Thank you. I'm here in the context as the league observer for the Recreation Commission.
Excellent, thank you. So Casey, first order of business is the approval of 2 sets of minutes that we have. We sent those out on the email. I want to make sure everybody received those. Did you guys all receive those in the attachments?
Yes.
Does anyone need a moment to review them? Okay, do we need to do them separately, Ryan?
Yep.
Okay, so make a motion to approve the minutes from October 22nd, 2020.
Seconded.
And Ryan, do you want to do a roll call?
Yeah,
for...
I'll do. So all those in favor, we'll do a roll call, or we'll do a roll call for the vote. So Casey, vote.
Yay.
Jen on the vote.
Yes.
Paul Bohm on the vote.
Yes.
Paul Grasso on the vote.
Yes.
Okay, passes 4-0.
I don't have math.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for October 23rd. Are you laughing at me? Right.
I think we're laughing at how small the minutes are, but
Well, to be clear, the October 23rd minutes are the Rec Commission's visit to the StarMet site.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a second.
Yes, right now.
yeah. So we'll do a roll call again, doing the vote. Casey,
Yay. Yay.
Jen,
Yes.
Paul Bohm,
Yes.
Paul Grasso.
Yes.
Okay,
Can't play one more.
so the minutes are approved for both those dates. Andy, if you can move those forward to the town clerk's office when you get the chance. Open for public input at this time. Carlin, anything you want to add in right now?
Right now, no.
Okay. Just on the appointment updates, we know we have one open position. Pete Funkhauser has been sitting in and observing, and I believe he will be moving forward with saying he wants to be the 5th member of the commission. So we're going to try to wrap that up before our next meeting to bring him on. What we liked about Pete coming on is his original background of being involved with the BD Center out of the gates, and a little bit of the history that's involved there for that. And then if we are looking to do some things, to do some type of advancements, as we had talked with Dick Jamison at the last meeting about, doing some financial fundraisers, those type of things. Pete certainly brings the background and history to how they were successfully done 13 years ago for the center. So we're hoping to move forward with him and get that appointment finalized through with the town manager's office and the select board before the next time we come around. Department updates. I'm going to start with letting Anna and Andy get to the department updates because we held off to the last for them last time around. So Anna, you want to take the lead on this one first?
Sure. Yeah, I never get to go first. This is great. So I'm representing the Hunt side of the operation, and we have lots of good things to report. So our school year programs, which include our remote learning and our after school program, are still running very successfully. We continue to see small changes month to month of additions or kids dropping out, but ultimately we've held pretty straight since school started, which is really great. We're in the process of trying to onboard a couple more staff to support the remote learning portion of the day, just continuing to recognize that the kindergartners and younger kids need a little bit more help on the computers than the older kids. So another set of hands is ultimately our goal. So if you know of anybody that's looking for part-time employment. The Remote at Ripley program, which is the remote learning that's available for school employees and town employees' children, is also doing okay. We have 2 employees that are running that program now. We have 10 memberships, and we've had attendance 30 out of the 34 days that the program has been running. So that's been a great resource. And I know Ryan's talked about potentially opening it up in the future to business owners as well in Concord. So a great resource. Special event wise, we ran a trunk or treat event in October up at the high school parking lot, a drive-through concept. It was really great. We had 45 cars, I want to say, per school, and all the slots filled up. We had tables represented from different town departments and businesses, including the visitor center, the PTG groups, things like that. It was really, really nice event. We got some nice feedback from families. Certainly not what our trunk or treat used to be, but a nice opportunity for people to come together and get out of their house for a minute, which was great. Right now, we're running a turkey hunt event. I don't know if you've seen it on our Facebook. If you're not part of our Facebook, go ahead and join. We have 5 stakes with signs and hidden spots around town. There's a new clue that's posted on our Facebook page each day. And if you find the turkey sign and you return it to our building, you get a free fresh turkey from Crosby's. So we've had 3 out of the 4 signs found thus far, and another clue will go out tomorrow. So if you're looking to get out at the 61-degree weather tomorrow, go and look for our turkey signs. Marty Hutchinson is overseeing that special event. And we're toying with some ideas for the holiday event that used to be the tree lighting and the parade through downtown. That won't be, but we're thinking of ways that we might be able to get the community together safely, whether it be virtually or in small individual family groups through our building somehow. So more to come on that. Adult programs. We are currently running a volleyball program, volleyball and pickleball programs on the weekends, as well as 2 pickleball programs midweek. Both programs are running really well. We have our COVID policies in place for all programs. We have coordinators that are overseeing those programs and making sure that participants are wearing their masks and following all the rules that we in the state have in place. And knock on wood, so far, so good. We're hoping to hold those 2 programs through the whole winter. They're both running at Hunt right now, but we don't have any plans to have adult basketball return. We used to have a pretty robust adult men's and women's basketball program, and those are on hold right now. We will, though, be running youth basketball clinics. We had a robust youth basketball program where the kids did get to do inter-team competitions and things like that. This year, it's just going to be clinic-based. So we're taking boys and girls programs, K through 8 for the boys, and then U8, U10, and U12 for the girls. And right now, they're both at about 40% full. We can only take 12 kids per age slot. So the registration is slow but steady. That'll start in January, and it's just going to be clinic-based. So the kids won't play other teams. They won't ever mix with other groups or anything like that. But it'll be a nice opportunity for those that aren't looking for, CCYB level play or skill to get out on the court and get familiar with the game a little bit.
And Anna, that's indoors in Hunt as well,
Yes.
the youth basketball?
Yes. We're also going to be offering a ski program, which will look very different than our programs in the past. So this year, it's just going to be for the middle school students who typically ski at Wachusett. And it's going to be a drop-off program. So we're not sure how registration is going to go. We can't swing the busing. So it's going to be parents can drop off at the mountain. Our staff will be there. We'll help facilitate the day for the kids if they're doing lessons or just free skiing. Make sure everything is set and that the kids are good so parents can leave. That registration will open next week. And we're going to take between 25 and 30 kids to participate in that. So trying to get something on the ground. Neshoba, who used to host our elementary age ski program, they're not hosting any municipal recreation or school groups this year at all. They won't allow people to coordinate any program like that, which makes sense. So just offering it for the middle schoolers this year. We're also in the process of planning summer camp again. We're going into this with 2 ideas and models in mind, a COVID model and a non-COVID model, going a bit heavier on the COVID model as it was this past summer. We've already had preliminary discussions with the superintendent and assistant superintendent about using the schools again, and they're on board with doing that. So we're optimistic that we'll be able to offer a model that's very similar to what we did this past summer. So it would be smaller cohorts, K through 6, potentially our teenage program, but in the past that's typically been field trip based, and we're assuming that probably won't be back and running by this summer. So we'll continue to share information as registration approaches and things like that, but we are going to charge forward and start our hiring in January. So if you know anybody that's going to be looking for part-time summer employment and they're interested potentially in working with us, send them to our website.
Just a quick question. You said K through 6. Is that like going into kindergarten?
Yes, entering kindergarten through entering 6th.
Okay, because we're thinking about doing that for my daughter, so good to know.
Great. Yeah. If you have any questions, let me know. And then lastly, I have a small update from the visitor center manager, Beth Williams. She's had a great fall thus far with numbers that have mimicked last fall, October 2019. So she's been very happy to see people coming into the center, visiting town, hitting the trails. The trails have definitely, the maps for the trails have been used a lot. So people are getting out there and finding those natural resources. They've offered a couple new tours over the last 2 months. So they've done some cemetery tours for Halloween. They've been doing some African-American bike tours, family tours, and they continue to offer the Little Women tour as requested. There will be new hours for the winter. So in the past, we've always been closed from about this time of year through April, with the occasion of opening on Thanksgiving weekend and around Christmas. But this year it will be open. Beth is going to coordinate tours as requested by people. It'll just be her over there with support from some of her staff on weekends intermittently. So if you're looking for quick holiday gifts for family or friends you want to send, Beth's got some great stuff, great merchandise down there. So feel free to stop by. She's open Monday through Friday until 4 o'clock. And that is the big updates. I won't share all the tedious numbers about the school year programs, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes.
Yeah, I just finished going to a public ceremonies and celebrations committee meeting, and I just wanted to note that at that committee, they decided, that given the input from the recreation department, that they're not going to be providing any support to the tree lighting this year, or at least they don't expect to. If they need anything, you need to tell them, because the next meeting is not until after the tree lighting is scheduled to happen. So
yeah, I spoke with the chair of that committee earlier this week, and we didn't have enough definitive information for her to bring to that committee tonight. So she knew that she was kind of on hold and assumed that it wouldn't be what it used to be, but I'll make sure to reach out to her if something changes.
But it doesn't sound like there is any action item for them.
No, not in terms of parades and such.
Okay. And then go ahead.
Go ahead.
Another thing about the ski program is, this seems like an opportunity that you could have the school bus with the windows open and have sort of a horizontal chairlift going all the way to Wachusett.
Yeah, we considered that. We definitely considered that, but decided to start out with this and see, where the interest lies, and recognizing that the schools are, a bit tapped with their resources and busing and cleaning and things like that.
Joke.
Yeah, we'll see. We're not sure how many people are going to want to drive out there and drop off.
Right.
Back on Beth's activities, what role did she have in the Discover Concord brochure? Was that her? Because I remember we discussed promotional material that she was either leading
Yeah.
or participating in. What was her role in that? Because I think it
Yeah,
was
so that,
very nice.
Ryan, were you
piece of
gonna?
work.
Yeah, Discover Concord brochure is run independent by two private individuals. They certainly coordinate
Right.
with members throughout the town and different organizations throughout the town. And Beth was involved in discussions with them, and they're involved a lot with the Discover Concord movement as well. So they or Concord Together movement. I'm sorry. So the individuals that run that brochure magazine are highly involved with the economic vitality around town. So they do, connect with Beth and with the town offices quite a bit, but they are independent.
And I forget, Ryan, was she going to do a separate promotional material just for the visitor center, just for tourism?
Yeah, we do quite a bit. So traditionally we do a map that we highlight all the
Right.
points around town and the businesses as well. We didn't do that this past year, but she works a lot with the Greater Merrimack Valley tourism branch, and works directly with them and trying to come up with ways to promote tourism, regional tourism, people coming into town throughout. So.
Okay, thanks.
That's
All
all
right.
I have.
Anything
Anna,
else,
one
Anna?
question. Do you have the listing for the positions for Concord, the rec program?
Yeah, all the positions are posted on the town website under the title of group leader. So they're all on there. I can email them to you specifically afterwards as well.
Okay, that'd be great. And just a thought in the dark, do you think there would be any appetite for, even if it was like a cross-country skiing or snowshoeing type of thing at Great Brook Farm?
There might be. I don't know what the restrictions are looking like over there. If are they open? Are they doing that this winter? Do we know? I haven't even looked.
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't have the materials. I know that those guys rent them out over there. It's certainly something we can look into. I know our rec supervisors are planning a handful of other after school sorts of programs, Legos, cooking. We're going to be joining into an esports league as well that the region is doing. So there'll be more information to come on that. We will be creating a brochure of sorts. It's going to be more of an 8-page summary of basic information in all the different program areas. And that will be hitting mailboxes on December 29th. So you will see new programs that are still kind of being created and prepared that'll run between January and March. It'll also have the dates in there for any spring or summer special registration. So summer camp, school year registration for next year already, things like that.
Great.
And that's all I have. Thanks.
Andy, you're up.
So at BD, just want to touch on a couple good things. Certainly we've had a lot of involvement from the facilities group recently. They've done some camera work so that we can improve some of our coverage locations. Hope to get those installed before the end of the year. They've also been working on a water leak issue that we've had that's cost us gallons of water and all that goes with electricity and heating and all that. So they were just firming up some of that work recently. So we hope to see some of those, non-payments happen as far as not, wasting things when we've had a little problem. Nothing that's impacted, we'll say, the structure of the building, just an area that was quirky and hidden and well found by that staff. On the marketing front, we've continued with our constant contact as far as, those communications that go to more than just membership, trying to highlight some different programs, the fact that we are open, all those good things. We've also worked recently with the town to get new home sales. So we have a sense of who bought a property and how to reach out to them just to share with them who we are. So we just got about 200 home sales related to the time period of March through October. So that's going to be something nice to work with. Our second Family Friday Fun Night is going to be December 18th. It is sold. The first one sold out, and I think this one's going to sell out as well. And with it, about 11 to 12 families coming our way, experiencing us, first opportunities to sort of come in the door. Another piece of advertising, I think, has been highlighted is that Discover Concord piece. We are sharing a half-page ad with the Visitor Center, and that support came through the Town Hall and Stephen Crane. So that was great to get our name in that publication. It's really well done, and we'll certainly highlight a lot of good things around the holidays and the ability to use the Visitor Center / the BD Center. And the last piece was that rec brochure, which will go out at the end of this year, really highlight, the year 2021. It's, half BD, we'll say at times. So we like that heaviness, but certainly covers all that's going on in Hunt as well. To go into our different group activities, group exercise is gearing up with some smaller programs to fill the gap between the seasons of fall and winter. We've got, about 21 programs, sort of drop-in things, or nine of those drop-in things geared up to, cover that gap, with about 21 programs related to the winter season that starts on January 4th. On the aquatic side, same thing. We've got some little gap programs happening next week with the otters. Basically 4 programs that sold out already, so a good popular piece. We've got some pop-up pieces with preschool and parent-child swim pieces that are the middle part of December. And then 93 programs start up the week of January 4th related to winter. Of those 93, we're hopeful to work some running numbers in the high 80s. We always have some drop just based on enrollment numbers or whatnot. On the membership side, sort of looking at that gap between when we closed for that pandemic piece that's still going, to when we just, basically got through some of our inviting our membership back. Our numbers were, in the membership area, which includes the 3-month and the annuals, about 1,300 going into the closure. And we're about 1,100 right now, as far as who's in the system, who's paying. So we're down about 200. That's, factoring in as we get some cancellations. Obviously, we get some new people coming our way. We're going to get more cancellations still. We've just geared up that opening of our inviting everyone back October 19th. It's going to take more than a month to play out. So we won't probably really see, those finalized until the first part of January, we'll say. But, we're optimistic that, we've got a good product, that we're selling it well, that we have positive, energized people coming in our door, and it just helps us sell. And with it, as we, go into the reservations pieces and, control who's coming in the door, it's just being well received and give us a good sense as far as what we can do. We do envision a little bit of a change with that model after we get through, we'll say our programming piece right now, and just give, we'll say, more opportunities to people come into the door. So questions on any of those fronts?
Why did you say that you think you'll be getting more cancellations? I mean, are you getting feedback from people, or is it just like the general trend you're seeing? Can you shed a little bit more light on that?
Yeah, I think they're just going to be surprised. A lot of them are engaged in a lot of other things in their lives, so they don't necessarily always pay attention to our emails. They sort of lose track of things. When they finally start checking their credit card bills, I think they're going to discover, okay, they did commit to sign up. We did take them off that $1 pause on October 19th. Some of the members won't see that till like November 15th, that actually will hit their credit card. So when it does hit, we go back and forth with them and sort of share our policies. We say, yep, we're not going to charge you a cancellation fee. We're not going to charge you a registration fee for 2021. We're doing all these good things. So we try to, walk them through that a little bit, but certainly want to support the people that need to leave us. We just think we're going to get more of those as those credit card bills hit.
Has the trend been about what you thought? Has it been better or worse? What do you think? Because it sounds, like a big drop. It doesn't sound as bad as I thought you were going to say, honestly. But I don't know. I have no context for that.
I think the tough context is maybe the 3-month membership is such a big drive right now for us. So we just don't know how that's going to sell in regards to the long term. We basically are seeing about 83 3-month membership come our way and 24 annual or recurring. So those 83, we'd love to turn them into annuals. Hopefully they recognize the value of the product. Hopefully they say, okay, if they go to the annual approach or the recurring approach, they're going to get a better value for their buck. But it's just those 3 months. It's a little bit nerve wracking as far as, okay, are they just testing the waters? Are they going to figure out something else to do? Are there other facilities going to open up again? So we're just, that's a nerve wracking number when we got too many on the 3-month membership side.
Right. Okay. All right.
Andy,
Thank
have you seen any updates on the national trends? I know when we first started coming back, we saw the national trends of the percentage of members that were coming back and using facilities. Have you seen any updates on that? And where do you think we are on our percentage? I mean, it's an educated guess here on this, but where do you think we are in our percentage of members that are using the facility again, percent?
Just on the national front, was on a call yesterday that, was highlighting, the club industry, in a whole. And the worry is that, the number is about 20 to 25% right now. The worries it's going to go up to more like 30 or 33% as far as just not having facilities open. So as those things don't happen and membership goes away, and the concern for the pandemic is still out there. Everyone's trying to lobby and recognize hopefully the value of a health club when it comes to stress reduction, when it comes to getting at fitness goals, when it comes to some of those minor social pieces that hopefully they'll value. What was your part 2 question there?
Just on what you think our percentage of users are that are back using the facility.
Yeah,
members.
We had in the area of 600 of those households. So if we're looking at 1,100 memberships right now, yep, we have quite a few that aren't with us or aren't using us regularly. When they do use us, though, the reservation system is forcing their hands, and with it, it's good in that sense because they say, oh, I made a reservation. I made it 2 days in advance. I'm going to come. We got to balance that as far as numbers. And, we, per se can't have everyone come 7 days a week. That would be overwhelming. But we certainly, are supporting, everyone making one reservation a day, canceling it, please, with some good notice so we can give others opportunity. But, yep, we're pretty active. We certainly have some slow times that we try to highlight to people as far as when to come in the door. We really aren't going to expand our occupancy numbers. We're just going to reduce some of our time gaps. Right now, our time pieces are up to 85 minutes. We're going to get down to 55 minutes and recognize that people walk in the door and want to go to a second exercise location. We're going to support it. They just need to work with us at the front desk. Walk in the door with one reservation. Let's see what we can do as far as getting you to a different location, whether it be going from a treadmill down to the therapy pool, something that is, gives them value like their membership was before. But no, it's been busy at times, which has been nice. Again, a lot of positive people coming through the door, which energizes our staff, keeps us happy and keeps us motivated.
Thank you. Any questions on BD?
I have a question about, and I just don't have it in front of me, in terms of the reopening plan with where gyms are in the phases. So if we start to roll back, if the governor calls for a rollback, is there a contingency plan for a complete shutdown?
We would certainly work with the Board of Health in regards to what they would like us to do with the requirements, the recommendations, whatever they might be from the state. They did have some problems in some communities recently, and they did directed just at those communities versus ours. So that was a positive sign that they are going to spot control and not do a broad stroke in regards to Massachusetts. But, we would essentially need to go into that closure mode again. I don't know if they would close pools versus fitness rooms. We would certainly be on board with whatever they're saying. If they say close the pools, fine, we'll close the pools and run our fitness rooms and, manage our membership accordingly. But, no indication right now that they would do that dramatic step, we'll say. I think the reduction in hours, which did not impact us when they went to that 9:30 at night to 5 a.m. in the morning, well, those just aren't our hours. So that was a little good news for us. There's just no, big indicator as far as when their next step was, but encouraging that those 13 communities were managed separately than in the whole state.
And Ryan, this is more of a question for you. Is there coordination with the town health department in terms of just keeping track of the trends and looking proactively towards things like this, and even just a way to highlight the safety measures at BD?
Sure. Well, they're naturally, they keep us updated on everything that's coming out from the state level, because sometimes they're even difficult to find out. So even on the guidelines, there'll be an update to the guidelines on pools. And if we're not out actively looking for it, then it could slip by, and she'll shoot me an email when it comes out. So we get that communication that's happening across the board. I think they primarily are, the thing we talked about when we were even talking about reopening is, if the state says we can reopen, we still need the local board of health and the town manager's office to say we can reopen, because we're working with how our communities, we're still a town entity, and how we manage through that, not Gold's Gym. So I think a lot of that communication is happening at the senior management team level, and to how to keep facilities open. And they're talking about the library and the BD Center and Hunt, and keeping those all in mind when they're looking at how they're operating everything. We've had great relationship with the Board of Health, but we also don't want to overwhelm them right now with things that are going on. So they shoot me an email and I say, I got it. And sometimes it's, here, please update the youth sports programs on this. And I send it off. And sometimes it's for us, because the most recent one was for pools and fitness centers that she sent off to us. So we do have the communication. They're not really, we're not involved in the conversations about how the trends are happening in Concord. I think that's more, like I said,
No,
happening
that makes sense. But I just sort of ensuring that the level of communication is there and that it's being flagged is important.
Yeah, I think we would get a decree down from the town manager's office that says, okay, this is where we're talking at the higher level of, we're shutting down the library and the BD Center, and we're shutting these things down. So. And
then on the flip side, and Andy, I apologize if I missed this, but for the 3-month memberships that are coming up and due to expire, are we actively reaching out to those members and like calling them on the phone and walking them through, this is what we have available, these are the safety measures we're taking, this is how you use our system, to encourage people to either re-up for another 3 months or go in for a annual membership?
Yeah, I mean, we know the status of their membership when they come in the door, but something certainly we could follow up on more and make sure that they're aware of the options related to, yes, you can get another 3-month membership. Yes, you can move the 3-month membership over to recurring. We'll reduce the $99 joining fee to $49 when someone does that. So sharing those options, certainly, could happen more and should probably happen just on the one-offs, as far as let's do some individual attention there versus just a blast of emails.
Yeah, definitely, like a phone call, calling through the roles of those folks might have more turnover. That's all I got.
Anything else for BD? All right, going to move on to some updates. I'm going to try to share my screen here coming up, but with Casey coming on as the new chair, we've had a lot of conversations about what's the the purpose of the rec commission, what is the mission of the rec commission, what's the vision of the rec commission, and kind of dug through again, and I've shared with everybody here the what we found, and it compiled back. So the most recent thing that the Recreation Commission has is the administrative code, which is from 1982, I think here. So I'm trying to, can you guys see that up on the screen right now?
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, it's older than me by almost exactly 3 months.
I was going to say the administrative code is older than some of the people on the Zoom today. So we've, I think in discussions with Casey, some of the things she wants to take a look at doing here is to reevaluate this administrative code as a commission and take a look at it, see if it's relevant, make some recommendations to the town manager's office and the select board to say if we want to make any changes to it. I don't think we're going to go through that tonight, but just for you guys to be able to read through this administrative code and see where you think changes need to be made. If you need to add anything, take anything away. I know, I just look at, it says that the commission establishes the admissions or fees to be charged for users and services in facilities, which hasn't happened at all. And I think would be an overwhelming task to be happening on your guys' level. And we've always utilized the commission to kind of give a public input as to whether our fees are appropriate. And that's something, in my opinion, we should be able to come back and discuss and take a look at, because, you guys come to us and say, we think that summer camp or BD is appropriately priced or underpriced or overpriced. And you kind of give us that perspective and to how the community's feeling on those type of things. But for you guys to go through and say what the price is on a Lego class that meets, for 4 Tuesdays is going to be, that's all we'll do for our commission meetings. We'll be going through that. So
do we need a clerk? The first sentence says, or the second sentence says Alexa chairman, or chairperson, which we have done. But what about a clerk? I mean, we're gonna like completely upend this thing, or we're gonna try and follow how it's laid out. This is what I do. This is a big part of what I do for a living. So I'm going to be all over this thing. So word by word, you can get hung up on this stuff all night long.
Yeah. Prior to me getting here, the town had actually had one of the paid staff members. They were paying them overtime to come in and do the minutes. I don't know, going back to 1982, what had happened with clerks. I'm sure that is really driven.
Or secretary or something like that.
Someone doing secretary and taking the minutes. Which we've kind of passed along to Andy and Anna in the 4 years that I've been here, to kind of go through and manage that and get that out for us. But
so my question, are you like proposing that we go over this at a very high level and kind of see if it's in the, what the direction this document takes, or you really want to get into this thing kind of like line by line, see what it actually says and, refresh it for, this era that we're in? I'm not really sure what you're kind of recommending here.
I think probably more on to the high level. I mean, for this being out there since 1982, we should be able to have you guys put some real high level input into it as to what you think the commission should be. The select board put in some their input into it. The town manager's office put some input into it. Kind of see if we could put something together for a recommendation to the select board that says this is, kind of the mission and vision of what the rec commission is about, and to be able to provide better guidance.
So, and I think also, Ryan, one of the back pieces to this is making sure that we have, thoughtful and transparent policies and procedures. So what's come up in the process of seeking letters of recommendation for the commission, so that we have these foundational pieces that will guide us in how we do letters of recommendation, why we do them, and when we do them. And it will allow us to sort of build those pieces to say, this is what our charge is, update it for the times that we're in. And Ryan, I believe it was last spring, you shared with us the mission statement of the department.
Yep.
And the commission established a mission statement in line with that, or maybe it's the same one, and set goals towards that end. And for especially letters of recommendation, the conversation Ryan and I had with, and I apologize, Ryan, if I'm jumping the gun here, but with the assistant town manager, with Kate Hodges, about when we should do them, why we should do them, and that the whole commission has the opportunity to weigh in on that, so that we have a better, better guidance for the work that we do that has higher implications, whether it's for organizations' applications for CPC funding or for the private-public partnerships.
Okay, so are you saying when we are asked to provide a letter of support for something?
Yeah, so we
Okay.
have a good sort of template for how we do it and why we do it and when we would do
Okay.
it in the process.
I don't know if
so
you were
that
referring to
there's-
us giving one, or if we were how we get or how we receive them. I just want to clarify that.
Sure, no, I just meant sort of why we would do them for various organizations if it's related to town recreation. So just sort of establishing those pieces. So when they come up, we know what's guiding us and it's not just a sort of seat of the pants type of thing.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you on the process. So as an example, the process for establishing a process for letters of recommendation, so who does that, and what's the role of the commission in input to that or reviewing that? Just how does that process work?
Well, in my opinion, we should certainly take a look at what's happening with other boards and commissions in town and how they're managing through that. And, so it's just not as much of a shotgun approach as we've had, and be able to, someone comes in and addresses us and is looking for it, we can kind of have that laid out as to what our charge is, if it meets our charge, and take a look at that. And I'm sure there's got to be some other ones in town that we can mimic and try to utilize to at least get us started on it. I'm sure there's boards and commissions that have more updated charges than 1982 in what they're doing, and have reviewed it earlier than
All
1982.
of them.
So you're in the process of looking into that now.
Yeah. Yes. And I think, getting everybody's input in here is a value for us to be able to move forward with that.
So Ryan, back to the document you were showing. So what input do you need from us, and how should we get you that input? For example, the issue of letters of support or recommendation, does that appear on this as part of the mission? Is it added to it? Or?
It doesn't appear. I mean, it's very rough in how it says it. I got to find it in here. Is review the annual budget and capital improvement program. I'm looking for. So to look at number 5 is a very broad perspective, which I think you will need some elements of broad perspectives in it, but it's.
Can you put that up again, please?
Oh, I'm not sharing. Sorry. I thought I'm sharing here. I'm like highlighting it on my own computer.
Does any change in that document require approval from the select board?
I would believe ultimately the select board would approve any of that. Matt, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, we're responsible for approving the changes to a committee charge.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and in a perfect world, we would send them up with, here's our list of recommendations, here's what we want. They would have something that if we've gone through and kind of said, this is where we envision it would be going through, it would have been viewed out by the town manager's office simultaneously. So they have it, and then they have known that we've kind of had our input in on it, and the town manager's office had their input on it, and
yeah,
they still tweak it from there and make determinations from there.
So back to my question, would you like input on this offline and back to?
What I would say is just
like,
moving for the December meeting, if people could just, mark up and email that communication to me, I could compile it all together so that for our December meeting, we could kind of at least, I could go through and type number 5 and I could say, here's the recommendations on number 5 is someone said eliminate it. Someone said, cut this sentence out or whatever. And then we can throw in other things that we wanted to. I'll try to find And Matt, you might be able to lead us with a good one if you know of any good ones, a good charge or a good setup for another board of commission that is in town, a very well established directive, and try to show you one of those and see what that looks like too.
I mean,
Are you going to send this to
one-
us?
Go
Oh, sorry,
ahead.
Matt.
I was just going to say, I don't think this one structurally looks wrong. It's just the things they're talking about are out of date. It
Right.
actually is, fairly crisp in terms of in all these charges. You definitely see how many members are there, what are the officers, then what are the responsibilities, and these are clearly enumerated. It's just not what you guys do. It's so. I mean, I can dig one up, but this is not badly formed. And so I don't know if any of the others is going to be any more enlightening, even if they're more up to date.
Okay. Yeah, Paul, I sent this on email that had the attachments of the minutes, I believe.
Okay.
Ryan, just a quick, this is in PDF. Do you have a Word version or anything? Like, I'm assuming this is made in 1982. So
It was done on a typewriter.
Yeah,
yeah,
we
so
can have, we'll have someone type it up and resend out a Word version. So if you want to go in and make corrections on a Word version and send that back to us, we could do that and get that out to the board, to the commission.
okay.
Yeah, I would agree. Looking at it, I would agree with what Matt just said. I mean, I review these things all the time, and this format's pretty clean. I wouldn't get too hung up on that. It's a pretty good presentation. It's just it's out of date. You're probably missing a few sections, like Casey was just alluding to. How do you deal with certain things? You can kind of set it up to just expand it a little bit. Other than that, I think it looks pretty good.
Okay.
Especially for something that's 38 years old.
Looking at this, I'm wondering if COVID has, I mean, it certainly has changed and made the recreation department more nimble in terms of what services and what programs. Is that it's kind of an emergency or kind of one-off thing that nobody predicted in 1982?
Yeah, there's a lot that's even changed prior to COVID. I mean, there wasn't a BD center in 1982. There wasn't even thought of a BD center, and it's so there's a lot of it, and it's I think it's a broad perspective because you do provide some input on the fields, things that outside of the recreation department that are general municipal recreation. So playgrounds, fields, tennis courts, walking trails. You provided some input into those things, and then you also are here to be the sounding board and to kind of be the eyes and the ears for the recreation department as a whole too. So it's kind of almost two separate charges happening within there. Is my perspective.
I think that the Recreation Commission of 1982 would have had a heart attack if they had seen the budget and the staff levels that you've got today for Concord. They wouldn't believe it.
They probably did set the fees back in 1982 because it was probably 5 programs.
There's 5 things. Yeah, exactly.
Ryan, I think it would make sense for people to send recommendations, but also to dedicate a portion of our next meeting to discussing it, like after people have had a moment to digest it and making those recommendations. Then, sort of that is the springboard for leading into things like what is our procedure for letters of recommendation, and going into some of these sort of just basic features, looking at what we have for facilities so that when we're making decisions going forward, we have the most updated pieces to it. And that also sort of ties into the recreation facility strategic plan. So knowing sort of what is out there, what state is it in, and looking forward to, if people are involved in improvement projects or, whether there's CPC projects, things along those lines, that there's sort of how things lay out into a larger plan and making sure that it ties back into our mission, our function, and our goals. So it's really just to clean up and modernize where we are, what we do, why we do it, and how we do it.
Great. So you bring me to the next phase that we were talking about for updates. And we've been talking about this at the last couple meetings. The rec facility strategic plan was done in 2014. I sent you the link. This is on our webpage. So you can scan through it and take a look at it whenever you would like to. I've been working to do some updates. I also sent you that as a Word document right now, but I'll just go through quickly a couple of highlights on this. I'm going to try not to make you dizzy. Page 4. So there's a pretty good executive summary within here that gave short-term, midterm, and long-term goals that are definitely a good point for you to go through and take a look at and evaluate. We've utilized these goals when going for CPC funding for whether the pavilion over at Rideout, improvements to the Emerson track, et cetera. So that we've been able to utilize these goals for going through and talking through what we're going through on initiatives. But so it does give a short-term and a long-term goals, and I'm going to try not to get you dizzy because I got to go to page 22 here. So. And the other part I started updating is the park resources and going through, and this gives a good summary of where we were in 2014. And it goes through and it tells you the type of properties that we have and what is recommended and surpluses and deficits. And then it goes through and breaks down and grades each of the parks, which I skipped over just a second ago. And then it does go through and give descriptions of each of the parks. So I've sent you an update on the park descriptions right now, because since this has come out, we've added 55 Church Street, we've added Giroux, and we've added White Pond are 3 that stand out drastically. So we've gone through and started compiling any updates within each of these parks to be able to give a good update on that. And this was, coming from when people were coming in and talking about, park expansions or what's needed for lights here, there, or whatever type of components. It was, we didn't have a good solid breakdown of what our actual inventory was. So the update that I sent you was trying to get on the inventory level to be able to show you where our inventory is. And we'll be able to break this down even more complete. I'll go back through here and be able to take this section here of level of service and where it shows what was recommended, what Concord had in 2014. I'll update that for you and show you where we're at from there. And this,
Ryan, can I just step back for a second? So I'm assuming, obviously, that you or we are in the process of updating this plan, strategic plan, and I'm also going to assume that this is going to be done organically internally, as opposed, because this first one was done by Heller, an outside consulting. So are those two, both those yes? I just want to know where we're going.
At the very least, within my controls, we'll do it organically because
right. Okay.
I have had discussions at the town manager's office as to whether we should be reevaluating doing this professionally or not. But I think even if we were going down a professional path, the more we do and go organically, if we do go down the professional path, we'll save ourselves a bunch of money if we have a lot of the legwork done. So we'll go through the practice in our department to go through and update this the best we can to what was set up in 2014 here and play that out.
Right. So the process in 2014, if you look, I guess the arrows earlier showed the process.
Yeah.
It had a survey and considerable public input into this. Is that anticipated that we're going to go through that?
I don't think so at this time, and we can decide that. I think initially we would just go through and update the structural or the concrete updates here. Like I said, see how it says Cousins Field on the screen there? Sure. We would put one in for Giroux Park and talk about what Giroux Park is going to be and, the number of acres that it is. White Pond, what's at White Pond, and add to our inventories and go through and do all of that. We should certainly be able to go back and evaluate the surveys done in 2014. And if the commission decides that's something we want to move forward on, independently, we can do that.
So
I think the inventory part of this is I think kind of easily done, and you start to do that. the strategic part of this that reflects sort of what's needed. That's what I'm scratching my head. What, you know, we can look at what's written here back a few years ago and kind of blue sky it ourselves. So I think we're going to have to discuss how do we come up with the revised set of strategies, if indeed they are different. Maybe they're exactly the same.
Well, Ryan and Matt, how, from my understanding, is it every 10 years or so that these are done, and usually with an outside consultant?
I'm afraid that the Recreation Commission is not one of the pieces of territory that I have dealt with explored much in the past. So I don't know what the interval is. I could tell you the housing production plan and the long range plan and all those, but not this.
It's in talking to Kate, she thought just because Envision Concord had come out in between, that it would probably be a smart thing to really take a hard look at this and see and utilize either the results from Envision Concord within this to try to correlate the two between there, because that's fairly fresh and a bigger global perspective, but might be to utilize a lot of things from there to update this within here.
I would recommend that. Yeah. It's sort of like this is a lighter update. It sounds like cycle. And then maybe, you know, a few years hence, you might do a major update where you might re-engage an external consultant. I mean, it seems clear to me that this is contemporary enough that you don't have to go back to scratch to do it. You know, it's really about updating it, making sure it's still, you know, accurate. And like Ryan said, incorporating the inputs from the comprehensive long range plan, which now, you know, we really are into implementation of the plan. We've already gotten some of the goals achieved, and we're hard at work on others.
For clarification, comprehensive long range plan and Envision Concord, are those the same thing?
It's the same thing. Envision Concord is the title.
That's
or
the title.
Yeah, Bridge to 2030. That's the
there are recreational things
in there,
explicit or implicit, you know, implied in there. Sure.
Yeah.
At what point, Matt, would we need a public comment on any revised document here?
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, so what you would typically do is, I'd think that you would create a draft, and then you'd publish it on the website and publicize that it's available. I think you'd also want to get a read from, you know, the select board on the revised plan. And then, you know, maybe hold like, you know, a public meeting, essentially, you know, where you invite the public to, you give a little, maybe summary presentation, and then see, I think that'd be a great process. If you've got the capacity to do it in this year, I think it would be worthwhile.
Should have done it during March, April, and May.
Well, let's just say we still got a few months of winter where there's not going to be a lot of.
I agree. I think it'd be a fine thing to do to get this updated and get public, go public on this and get input. You know, 2014 doesn't seem like a long time ago, but it was a long time ago.
So just for clarification, what we'd be looking at is taking the facilities, the recreation facilities strategic plan, which is dated from 2014, incorporating the elements from the strategic long range plan Envision Concord, which was done a couple of years ago, and doing also just an internal review of facilities and assets, and discussing and publicizing and discussing and drafting our sort of amended version, if we want to call it that, then publicizing it out for public comment, sending it to the select board. Ryan and I discussed doing a sort of driving tour of the assets to be able to put eyes on them. Might be helpful for the commission as well. But going through this process, and are there other groups that would be helpful that we would engage for public comment? Carlin, I know the league is usually pretty good at organizing some of these things. Would this be something to coordinate with you folks to when the draft is ready?
I think yes. I could, as an observer, I make a report on what's going on with various committees, and I can include that in my next observer report. if you have a general time frame, just pass that along and we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
It-
Great.
I think if you peel back the things that are in the report, there are a number of stakeholders that probably need to be engaged informally. Council on Aging, you have the Senior Center and Harvey Wheeler Community Center. If you peel this back, there are probably half a dozen consultations that we may want to consider, informal consultations.
Okay. So I got a little homework to do on getting some of these into documents that we can go through and adjust through on. And I think the priority will be the administrative code and fine tuning that for the next, try to start working down that for the next meeting and start plugging away on behind the scenes on the rec strategic facilities plan, because that's going to take a little bit longer as well. So I just think moving forward, I just think that makes sense timing wise, is to kind of, if we have that administrative code in a little more solid in that recommendation up to the select board when we're going, then you would come in following that with the rec strategic facilities plan afterwards. Does anybody see anything, see that differently, or does that time up with everybody else's opinion?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds right.
I want to volunteer, if you need on the strategic plan, if you need another pair of hands or eyes,
Great.
I'd like to help.
And what do you guys think of like a rolling tour of the park facilities? We're getting into a tough season to do it.
We get duck boats for it, rolling rally.
I'm afraid in this city, we're going to be waiting a lot of years for duck boat parades coming up, but.
Ryan, I find it hard to define the recreational assets in the town, because as you noted in here, if you look at just parks, it's one number. If you look at outdoor assets for recreation and trails, so it's the
plan
a lot
actually
more.
Speaks fairly well to it, because it incorporates the state park and national park land within it, and it doesn't use it in our numbers that it's showing for Concord, but on some areas will say a town typically has this many acres of open space, and Concord may have less than that. But remember, there's a big asterisk on the Concord, because you have a state park and a national park in your city limits here. So I think that when you go through and you read the strategic facilities plan there, you'll see that it does incorporate a bit of that within there, and at least gets us going in the right direction. Even that has expanded in the last, since 2014, the amount of open space and trails. So
there's a lot of info in the long range plan too on this. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I'll pull Peter Hunter out of retirement to come in and help us out on some of that long range plan connection. And then anything else on those two elements before we move forward on the agenda?
The only question I would have, Ryan, is do you foresee needing more formal input from the commission? Like, do you want to have a specifically set meeting to discuss it, or do you want to keep it as part of the regular meeting process?
That's your call.
What do people think?
You're talking about setting up like a working
group, or have a separate meeting where this is the only topic, so the time press isn't such that we're going over department updates and whatnot, that we're just devoting it to this.
Well, the one thing I would caution is that you're a 7-member committee, so that even if you had 3, you'd need to actually form a subcommittee that would hold open meetings and the whole bit. So I just wonder, maybe we could just start down the path of trying to do this within the commission meetings, because I think everybody's got interest, and just see if it's inefficient or not. I mean, I've been working with the StarMet group that's drafting a report, and they have different people assigned to write different pieces and all, and they're pretty efficient. And they bring their draft material together, they look at it offline, and then they just briefly discuss it in the meeting, and then run off again and to the next meeting. So I think it can be done. I don't think you need to
We can do the program updates by documentation, so we can just send out, like Anna and Andy can put it together on a document and send it out to you guys, so you have the program updates.
I
So
was
we can-
just gonna say that, Ryan, you can just handle it that way.
Yeah,
And then somebody had questions, you can just start off that way and you can
Yep.
move through quickly.
that will buy us some time. Yeah.
I do think it's going to require several discussions amongst this group. Maybe you take parts of the report. You know, there's no great rush to do this. So, you know, if we do, well, what is your hope for updating this on the schedule?
I mean, I think at the very least, to do the administrative code, to put something together is going to take at least 2 meetings. So to finalize the administrative code after the second meeting in January and be able to send something up to the select board, you know, in February. The strategic facilities plan, I think is potentially going to play out till, you know, March, April, I think, for us to complete all the way through that, to do it effectively.
Yeah, I think it's about right. Yep.
Again, don't let my opinions run the show here. You guys can absolutely speak otherwise.
I think that's a realistic time frame, and we can set that as what we want to work for, you know, work towards.
Okay.
And there's no need to assign a subcommittee or working group at this point.
Okay. So what I'll do moving forward is I'll get you both of these and I'll try to get them both in Word document. I can definitely get the administrative code in Word document, go through, mark them up with highlighting your corrections and send them to me. And then I'll try to compile them for the next meeting and get them out in advance before the next meeting so that people can see what the comments would be, so that we'll have one document that will show Paul Grasso's comments and Jen Lutz's comments right on the same page, so that it's shared across.
Okay.
All right.
So
Next item on the agenda is a request from Little League to the Recreation Commission to write a letter of support, which has generated some of the conversation here. The initial discussions through with the town manager's office is that, well, let me just bring everybody up to speed on what we're talking about, so that in case you had missed it. Phil Gibson from the Little League presented to the Rec Commission last meeting about some hopes for changes to the Ripley Field complex. And the major of which they're talking about is they're looking to try to add lights at the Ripley Field complex. And to do so is going to take multiple levels of going through and meeting with different town departments, town committees, commissions, et cetera, and go through. And Kate had recommended that they started here for kind of an initial letter of support and discussion of that. So Little League is requesting from us, and Phil Gibson, the president of Little League, has sent the request to Casey and I to ask for a letter of support for them to move forward with pursuing putting lights on at the Ripley Field complex. Is everybody familiar with the Ripley Field Little League? Was everybody at the last meeting? Matt, were you at the last meeting we had? I can't remember.
I think I had to miss it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ripley kind of gave up, Little League kind of gave a master plan of where they were at. And within that master plan, they, one of the major steps they wanted to do was consider putting lights on at Ripley Field.
So Ryan, the letter of support focuses on lights, or is it sort of the upgrade of Ripley Field beyond lights?
The main focus is the lights.
Okay.
Have there been discussions with the neighbors?
There hasn't yet.
Yeah. So I think it sounds a little premature to be providing a letter of support.
So that's where the discussion came. So they went to the town manager's office. The town manager's office direction was to move forward to get an initial letter of support from the Rec Commission. So Casey and I went back and talked to Kate in regards to this. And we kind of were saying the same thing. We were like, well, you know, this usually we get a request for a letter of support when they're going to get the funding for something. So CPC funding or something is usually when we see it come through. But Little League's directive for trying to make the improvements of the facility was to say, what's the Rec Commission's thoughts and initial thoughts and looks at this, and is it something that they would support moving forward with trying to go through the channels on. And so that was the direction that Phil Gibson was given from the town manager's office for that, for making that improvement there. So Casey, correct me if I'm wrong on our conversation with Kate, if that's.
I think you're doing a good job giving a overview of it. I think this really did spur the conversation about how we want to proceed with these and make sure that we have a clear and transparent process for those who are applying and those who are observing. One of the things that is tricky is that in order for an organization like Concord Youth Baseball and Softball to get started, they need an initial blessing from the rec commission that their whatever they're looking to do is within our vision of and within the goals of the rec commission in general. And then we discussed with Kate and further with Ryan, adding a section of language saying, this is a conditional or an initial letter of support for your project, as long as it is going through the public comment period, going through all the other
all the proper channels with,
right, going through the other boards, commissions, and permitting process necessary. And then we would issue a formal letter of support once they've done that. So once they've done public comment with the neighbors and it's been, gone through that process. But in order for them to really get started, with the rest of the town, they need to know it's within, that the rec commission thinks that it's something that is appropriate for the town, given what our goals and mission are.
So a corollary to that, does that mean that we would believe this to be a recreational asset for the town as opposed to that private organization? And
it's that anytime they do something like that, that ends up becoming a gift to the town because we own the property. So if Little League puts a shed on the Little League complex, it ends up, even they buy it, they pay for it, they put it in, it becomes property of the town.
Okay.
So anything that goes through that Little League does there that is a solid concrete piece, it is on town property and it becomes property of the town.
So an asset of the town for the benefit of the public.
Correct.
Both.
Mm-hmm. So the thought here would be, we do need to do the work that we discussed just a moment ago in terms of laying out the code and looking at reviewing the facilities. For Mr. Gibson's project, it is time sensitive. And we do have projects that are coming through that are seeking letters of support and how we want to address that. So I think in general, we want to establish a general procedure for it. And then we do want to give Mr. Gibson a response so that he can adjust his plans accordingly. When we spoke with Kate's recommendation was to do a two-phase approach. So you could do an initial letter of recommendation, which would have that sort of backstop language in it. That would say, as long as once you've completed the public comment period, gone through the appropriate channels, permitting, et cetera, then we would initial a formal letter of support when they're in that fund requesting or gifting process. But this would be an initial discussion amongst the commission. Does this fit within our general and broad views for recreation and the goals for the town on recreation? Does that summarize it well, Ryan?
Yes.
This is initial to get him started to do the work to actually see how, folks feel about it, but he can't really get off the ground.
Yeah, because he's got to ultimately go and talk to the school committee, planning and zoning, or all whatever parties are in play for him to be able to accomplish that. And of which, Casey brought up the point of we don't know how much we want to go out and put a letter of support if the neighbors haven't been heard from yet. And that's where Kate had said, well, I think your ultimate letter of support would come after they've gone through all that and they're going for the final stamp of approval, but they've had public hearing, they've had those type of things so that they neighbors can voice their opinions. And each of the boards and commissions can go through and make sure that it crosses off and meets to whatever standards that they would want to have, or if it's even allowable to there, because I don't think we're the ones that say if it's allowable there. That's more a planning department initiative that would take place there. So,
But isn't the recreation approval or support? I mean, we're not going to be approving anything, but isn't that
No.
one of the things that would be required for somebody to go forward? I'm a little confused as to where in the process you are envisioning this fall, I guess is what I would say. You know, is it like right
we were
before?
confused too.
yeah.
I'm
So-
sorry, Casey, what? I missed that.
So we're confused too, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we went to Kate, and Kate's recommendation was that it should be a twofold process. It's the first step is, just as Mr. Gibson did, to come to the commission saying, this is the plan. Can I get an initial letter of support where we're saying in general, yes, does this speak to the goals for the Recreation Commission, the goals for the town in general? And we would give an initial letter of support. That letter of support would have the language saying, once it's been through the approval process, it's gone through public comment, then you can come back for a formal letter of support for the application process for whether it's funding or the gifting process back to the town. But this would be a process, this would allow us to support projects in their initial stages to say that, yes, they do fit within our mission and goals, and allows, for example, Mr. Gibson to go forward with this project so that he can gather the information, the approvals, and the public comment on his project. And then when he's submitting for either funding or probably for the gifting process, it's a formal letter of support, but this sort of gets it started in the process
And
and
that also
allows him
gives
to
you-
move forward.
Yeah, that also gives you, the commission, the opportunity to see the public input component that takes place. So that as a commission, we're saying we're going to put a letter of support in for the project, and you will have known what the public input is from both sides of the story. So.
I think that process makes a lot of sense with recall both steps, the same thing, letter of support or preliminary letter of support, whatever we want to call it. I think we have to differentiate the two, but I think that makes a lot of sense, what you just said.
Okay.
Matt, what do you think from a select board perspective, from what you see other commissions do?
Well, I'm not familiar with this sort of two-stage approval process. Normally, at least having been on the planning board, we would see something once. We might have something that we put into a plan, like the long-range plan document. So like one of the things would be, hey, is this in the long-range plan? Or is this in your recreation goals,
Yeah.
Right? And then with that kind of grounding, then whoever has an initiative they're trying to do, then they come back at that point where they're getting their, and maybe it's not, in your case, they'd come to you before they went to, let's say, the planning board,
Yeah.
And the select board. But still, I was surprised to hear something looking for a letter of support at this stage, because it just seems early to me. Normally this kind of thing would be socialized. You'd have some sort of public conversation going on, and then I would think the Recreation Commission would weigh in. But yeah, I do understand the objective here, which is, hey, before they even get started, it's not worth even getting started if you guys are saying, no, this isn't, this doesn't fit. So I look at it as more in the, I would phrase it more in the negative than the positive, in that, it's not a problem to keep going. It's not that you're sure that it's the right thing, because the public has no idea. We haven't got any feedback. So approval is kind of a weird word to use at this point.
So I would say sort of initial or preliminary support pending the outcome of public input and
Yeah, or some determination that
processes.
it's, you know, consistent with your goals or something like that. Yeah, I don't know how to phrase it, but.
So I guess if what I would propose to the commission is just first off, do people think a two-step process with the preliminary letter of support? So, because certainly with recreation, we have a lot of the public-private partnerships. So in order for some of these private groups to get started to know if something is within the plan. So first, it would be, do people think having this two-step process makes sense for the commission in general?
I think I just want to chime in again is what Matt said. I feel like that's one part I missed of what Kate was saying is that Kate was like, we don't want to have Little League go through this entire complex, go through this entire thing and go do all this and then come to the rec commission later on. And you were a 5-0 vote on them.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. It's just,
yeah,
I don't know what to call that, you
yeah.
know, this stage of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think she was just trying to say like, get there and see if how the commission stomachs it and sees if it's something that they feel is something worth moving forward and pursuing to see if it's something the community is going to support as a whole or et cetera. And then the commission could come back and weigh in later on and say like, all right, this is where we're at. We're putting our rubber stamp on it, so to say. So I think that was the
again,
concept.
I think the two-step process makes sense. And Matt, I think it's more than we don't have any problem with this. If you look, if this passes muster with every stakeholder group in the public, this would be a really good thing for recreation in town. This is be an asset. So I think we should do the initial spark to get him going.
Well,
yeah,
so
I think it's
general,
just you want to have your criteria.
Process?
You know, you want to have what are the criteria based upon either your plan or goals for this year or something that says why you think that's true, other than just
absolutely.
Support our youth sports. It's
we will find support. Yeah.
Right. So that was the whole conversation prior to, in order for us to fully establish that. We have a request that's before us that certainly is time sensitive for Phil, who's put a lot of work into it, and we just want to be responsive since this process could take months. So the piece out there is really just in general, are we okay with the two-step process? And I think, Matt, to your point, right now, we need to look at our facilities plan, and we're going to be relying a lot on Ryan in terms of, as rec director, his thoughts on, is this something that fits with what the department does, and pursuant to the facilities plan and the long range plan, we'd use those two pieces right now to guide us and where those fields stand and what lights mean. And then we would do a preliminary letter of support for Mr. Gibson to move forward, and then follow up after he goes through public comment and the other pieces that he needs to do with a formal letter of support.
Matt, out of curiosity, what stages would they most likely be in front of public comment for a project like this? I didn't go through the Doug Whitefield's lights or Memorial Field lights. I wasn't in town for that. Do you recall, or do you have any guess when that would happen for Little League?
I can't remember. By the way, yeah, I don't recall us seeing those
Matt,
planning board.
I don't think we're getting audio on you.
Oh, you're not hearing me?
I got it.
I can hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Okay. I think it is it the ZBA? I'm trying to think of who sees it.
I don't know the steps on it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I do know that there are public hearings on it.
Yeah, I would imagine. I've been in 2 other communities that had it, and it was.
Yeah, they're always a big deal.
Yeah.
What are you saying, Matt? Lights are always a big deal? Is that?
Yeah, well, if they're abutting residential neighborhoods, I mean, we just had a weird process where lights were approved for Minuteman Tech, and there's no discussion of that there, but that's a unique.
The only thing I would add to that is, at least in this particular project, it's abutting, definitely abuts Dalton Road, which has a few houses on it, but it also abuts Heritage, which has lights. So at least it does abut another major piece of property that's lit at night to a certain cutoff time. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's something to consider too.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I'm not being that helpful in giving
No,
you
it's all
the
right. It's,
precise sequencer boards or anything for lights.
it's all right. We're trying to actually help Phil through it.
I
and-
know that we've been through it with the high school and with, yeah, Doug Wakefield. So, yeah.
You know, it's going to be lights and noise. It's evening activity.
Yeah.
Up to a
Sure.
certain point. It's going to be lights and noise.
So I guess just to walk us back in the interest of time, I think separating this into two pieces, a general procedure to do a two-phased approach. The first initial or preliminary letter of support would be based on recommendations from the rec director, the strategic facilities plan, and the long-range plan from the town.
I think I like that idea. I like that two-step approach, Casey. That's my 2 cents. It makes a lot of sense because when there's been occasions where somebody just, kind of comes to the meeting and it's the first time you're hearing about it. And then they're like, well, I'd really like a letter of support, and you always want to support things, but you don't really have the time to kind of think it through, or I do like this approach. So.
Jen, what do you think?
Yes, I also agree with that approach, especially if you support the idea, but you don't really know how the general public feels about it in the town. You can't really fully support something if the town isn't in for that. So I think that also two-step approach allows for that. So
I think and this is, Ryan, you'll have to guide me here. I think what we would need to do is I can make a motion that for the commission to provide a two-phase process for letters of support. The preliminary letter of support, and the support would be based on recommendations from the recreation director, the strategic facilities plan, and the town's long-range plan.
I'm just speaking out loud here is just to say that, I think when we talk about the administrative code or what we're going through, that I think that's when you might want to really kneel down, saying that you're going to take a policy of a two-phase approach to it. I think in the meantime, I think you can do it. You could do an initial letter of support, and then, you kind of set the precedent for it a little bit. But going through it and saying that's going to be our policy, I think is something we should nail down going through on what we're doing on kind of the mission of the commission, and be able to put that into play for the long term to the best way we want. And this might be the first time we utilize it, and we kind of, this kind of leads the path for us, and we get to take a look and see if we think it's effective and how.
No, I agree. It should definitely be hammered out in the code. I guess what I want to do is for purposes of this meeting and this project, clarify that the two-step process is, what each step is and what the preliminary support would be based on for transparency purposes.
Yeah. So I think you're talking on the Little League level right now. The request from Little League coming to you, and with that request, you're looking to take 2 steps approach to giving them an initial letter of support, and then we'd be asking them to come back for a final letter of support when it's reaching a phase that the decisions are going to be made, or to that component. When it's going to select board, or it's going to the ultimate decision maker on it.
So do we need 2 motions is my question. Do we need one on the process and then one on the specific vote, whether or not to do it? Right.
My gut is you need one motion to write a initial letter of support for the Little League.
So then the next conversation is, how does the commission feel about writing a preliminary letter of support for this project? And Ryan, do you want to chime in briefly in terms of where these would fit, in terms of like where the department stands on it, and how it would be tie into the facilities plan and the long-term strategic plan?
Sure. So you're asking me right now?
Yeah, because we want to be able to give Mr. Gibson hopefully put on this.
I think in Phil's discussions to us, he was just making a point that every youth sports organization has lights except for baseball and softball. Is a valid point for the commission to consider, in that component's are out there for all the other youth organizations and not them. I think it's hard to really nail it down through each of those plans because times have changed. I'm going to start with just the director's perspective, and the rec director typically says yes to everything for recreation things, but I'm just making out points that in the last couple of years, youth sports have seen a major impact from Triple E and from coronavirus. And so the level of play and the timing of the season has been shortened and shortened on youth sports just in the past, 2-year window. So maximizing the space and use is a benefit to those organizations. They're struggling across the board, not Little League alone, soccer, lacrosse, everybody's struggling to get their games, their practices, their times in for multiple different reasons. And obviously now more than ever. And, but it's, I think it does add an element to help them to provide those recreational opportunities to the youth in the community. And then also perspective wise of, if you have a good youth baseball field and you can utilize it more, then you don't have to come back and ask for more good youth baseball fields, or less likely to come back and ask for more good youth baseball fields. That does help utilize the resources in town or maximize the resources in town. I certainly get the community sense of the not in my backyard. I've seen that and gone through that through multiple experiences. This will be an emotional public hearing when it comes time. And I think it's good for the commission to be able to see that and hear that to before they make a real good input as to where they lay. I think you're going to have people from Little League that are emotionally attached to it and really want it, and potentially neighbors that are emotionally attached and don't want it. And then strategic plan and looking at it, I really don't have anything off the top of my head in Envision Concord that I'm going to nail down to it. I usually got to.
That's fair. I'm putting you on the spot here.
I usually don't know Envision Concord like the back of my hand. I usually got to go through it and break it down to try to match things up. On the rec strategic facilities plan, I'm going to try to screen.
There are deficiencies. If you have that, they do note deficiencies for softball and baseball.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up here.
Well, in the long term, like 2018 and beyond, there's a specific line item, youth and adults at softball fields.
Yeah, well, there have been some changes since that time, minor, but they have happened. Like the stuff that's gone on at Rideout.
Right. Casey, let me just say, I've looked at Envision Concord, the long range plan. It's a general umbrella plan. You're not going to find mention of baseball or softball fields in there. So I'd say this letter of support has to be consistent with the principles in Envision Concord, because you're not going to find a line item.
No, I agree.
You will find a line item in this recreation facilities plan. You won't find it in Envision Concord.
No, that's fair. I think for discussion purposes, just going through it and airing it out makes sense. So thank you, Ryan, for giving that overview.
Yeah, sorry. I wish I could give you better detail on that.
I didn't mean to put you so firmly on the spot. Tell me what this town's long-term planning is for softball. So does the commission want to have further discussion, or are you ready to take a vote?
Before you would need a motion on the floor for both of those. So someone would have to make a motion for,
I would like to make a motion to.
I think someone else has got to make the motion, right? Besides the chair.
I need to get up to date on my.
I will make a motion that we consider a two-phase process to provide letters of support. One being a preliminary letter of support, and the second being an advanced letter of support. That's my general motion for letters of support.
Yeah. Okay.
Second.
Discussion.
I think we've discussed.
Okay, we want to put it to a vote, so we'll go through on a roll call.
I would just say, I don't even know, I would say you only need one motion, which says, do we want to send a preliminary letter of support for this lights thing? I think, but it's okay. You do this.
Oh, let me amend the motion.
That's my gut too. I would stay focused on the first letter of support. Yeah.
And I would like to say that we prepare, support, a preliminary letter of support for the
That's-
Concord Carlisle Youth Baseball lighting of Ripley Field.
Seconded.
Second.
Okay, so I'll do a roll call. CA is that yes, we will write a letter of support, and nay is no, or if you abstain. Casey,
Yay.
Jen,
Yes.
Paul Bohm,
Yay.
Paul Grasso.
Yes.
Okay. So I will draft that up, Casey, get that over to you. And we'll work that out to get that into Mr. Gibson's hands in the coming weeks. Jen, question?
Just a quick question. So I understand our process now that we would provide a preliminary letter of support and then a more formal one. So a two-phase approach. I'm just wondering if anyone who's the process of submitting requests to us, is there something that we would require them to submit to us for the preliminary letter of support versus the more full letter of support? So for instance, when Phil submitted the request to you, what documents did he send, or it was just a conversation?
Yeah, so right now there isn't anything, and I think that's what Casey is talking about. Like, what do we play? How do we play out and try to at least put some type of? It's not never going to be a true template because someone comes to you and asks for a letter of support to paint the flagpole at Emerson Playground is going to be different than a letter of support for the lights at Ripley, but
Guidelines for it. Basically.
yeah, some type of guidelines and how they come in, and if they need to come and present to the commission and be visible at a meeting, et cetera. I think we should be going through and putting that out, and that may not all be documented on the exact administrative code. We may be able to say like, please note the Recreation Department website for how to ask for a letter of support from the Rec Commission, and we can go through and kind of put out guidelines for people coming through to us. So it may not be something that's nailed down on the administrative code necessarily, but I think it's discussion we should be having when we're going through and playing this out as to what works best for you guys to receive these requests so that you get as much knowledge or brought up to speed as much as you want to be for certain things.
Thanks.
Does that make sense? Cool. All right. So I will get that over to you, Casey.
Thanks.
Now I lost my minutes. Where are we? I mean, my agenda. So
Reports from liaisons.
reports from liaisons. Matt, you're up from Select Board.
Well, I don't think I have any really recreation specific things other than just to say at the Community Preservation Committee meeting that there was strong support for the flagpole work. So even at this preliminary stage, it's pretty much been baked into the budget. Whereas there are a number of other projects that are, on the bubble or might be partially funded, that there was a general sense that this one should just be fully funded. So I think that's the main update I have recreation wise.
Sorry, Matt, which flagpole project you're talking about? Is that different from the
Emerson Field
CPC
flagpole
project?
that you guys sent your letter of support for.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was my responsibility. Okay, good. I thought that's what you were talking about. I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, you guys succeeded.
Yeah,
That's
that
all I
was
can
that
say.
was an easy one. I like that one.
Yeah.
So we don't have Dick here. I think they have a meeting tonight, Finance Committee. CPC.
Can I add something? Just I'm not on the select board, but I was at the chair breakfast representing another committee, and Linda Escobedo encouraged all committees and all members to review the open meeting law requirements, which she circulated around because there have been some hiccups.
Yeah.
Matt, I don't know if you want to say more than that, so I just wanted to mention that here.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think that, it all gets back to the basics of, you hold and announce open meetings. And I think for Recreation Commission, we just need to make sure that it's on the calendar and people know about it and the agenda is published in advance. And then I think the other thing is just conversations, offline conversations, that they never can involve a quorum, even in sort of a sequence. You can't play a game of telephone. And so those are really key things. And I think that typically it's not that people have a desire to do that. It's just almost accidental. And so in particular, once you start drafting that update of the report, that's kind of an example of a time when stuff like that can start happening, where someone goes, hey, I saw that you made this change, but shouldn't you do this? And crosstalk ends up expanding, and before you know it, you're in trouble.
Or copying everybody on an email.
Exactly. You never
Yeah.
reply all to anything. Yeah, that
Right.
kind of, other than
Can
just,
we make a recommendation to send the guidelines for open meeting law just around to the commission? Make sure it's
sure. I mean, there is a
updated.
packet that every committee member should have received, but I'm sure it's piled up somewhere in my cabinet somewhere. But I
But the
mean,
Attorney General's office has a good, just sort of basic guidelines,
there's
and
a
that's
online
yeah,
website.
something we can just send around and make sure we're.
You can Google it, or you can just get a link. Yeah.
Just don't reply to all, Casey, when I send that.
Yeah. I mean, the only things that you can do all are around agenda, time, meeting
Yeah.
times, things like that. I can make it. Yes.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things are fine.
Okay. Paul Grasso, CPC.
Real brief, the presentations are over. 2 nights ago was the first time we discussed the projects and kind of in a real preliminary way, kind of started funding, not funding, and or looking for more information on all the projects. It was pretty good conversation. The next 3 weeks, I think, will be all devoted to really kind of nailing down what gets funded, what doesn't. Not any big updates as far as recreation projects go that I can think of. The White Pond project that's getting a lot of positive feedback is probably the one piece of feedback I'd give, and that's where we are, the process.
And sorry to steal the thunder on the PC.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. The less I have to say, the better.
Cool. Public input.
Okay. Carlin Reed, 83 Woods End, for the League Observer. You might consider, Casey, asking for a timeline from people who are asking for letters of support, so that which direction you're going, and perhaps most importantly, how many opportunities members of the public will have to give input, because that's something that you can use at your hearing, saying, well, you'll have another chance to express your opinions at the planning board hearing, or whatever other steps have to occur. So that was my only observation and suggestion. That's it.
Thanks, Carlin. That's helpful. Appreciate it.
We don't have any old business. And then we should determine the next meeting date. It's going to be tough because it's the Christmas holidays that were around. Casey and I had discussed the potential of Thursday, the 17th. Because it'd be Tuesday of Christmas week otherwise. Or the school break week, which usually we struggle with. So is Thursday, December 17th, something that seems like it would work for commission members?
I can do it. Yep.
It works for me.
Okay.
Works for me too.
All right. All right. So let's go with that at 7 o'clock. So we'll follow up with the Zoom invites and everything for that.
And you're going to send around materials that we're going to look at, the code and all that, Ryan?
Yeah, I'll send
know you
it.
said that, but-
Word doc, and
Okay.
when you send it, you'll send it back to me only, and just put if you can, I'll try to set it up originally, but make sure you're tracking the corrections
Okay.
on the Word doc. And then I'll compile those all into one document so we can have that prior to the 17th meeting.
Okay.
All right, great. Need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Come on, Paul. I knew-
Second.
Cool. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
I
right.
don't think I need a roll call for that one. All right, thank you, everybody. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Thanks.
Okay.
Have a good one.
You too. Stay
Thank you.
safe. Bye.